To love P. Herman was a wonderful thing, a silly and liberating thing. I'm not speaking as someone who as a child watched Pee-wee's Playhouse, someone, you might imagine, like Greg, the boy who loved to sew on Curb Your Enthusiasm, but as an adult gay man who'd organize his Saturday mornings around watching the latest episode. In those days before streaming, I was known to miss trains out of town because it meant more to me to stay home and watch Pee-wee Herman, Paul Reubens, announce the arrival of Miss Yvonne, Lynn Marie Stewart, routinely described as the most beautiful woman in Puppet Land. Miss Yvonne, actually, looked like a girl who'd gotten lost on her way to the prom a few decades earlier and finally turned up. Her tuffeta slightly the worse for wear, but her head full of dreams that she'd been crowned. Her delusion was what made her beautiful. She floated around the playhouse like a fairy godmother, and, yes, I use fairy intentionally. Let's throw caution to the winds. In the new HBO documentary, Pee-wee as himself, Reubens, who died in 2023 and revealed he was gay in the documentary, discusses how he'd carefully kept his sexuality hidden for decades. To be out, he said, would have ended his career, at least as a children's personality. That proved to be true when he was arrested at an adult movie theater in 1991. But it was always obvious to anyone who was gay that Reubens was too. He had a sensibility similar to that of director John Waters, Polyester, Hairspray. Campy, blithely sunny, and somehow fundamentally innocent, but without Waters' gleeful enthusiasm for shock and trash. And what about Reubens' celebrated creation? Yes, Pee-wee was gay. Wasn't he? Yes, of course Pee-wee was gay. I don't mean that this hand-flapping man-child in a too-small gray suit could ever be imagined having sex or thinking about it, let alone dating Cowboy Curtis, Lawrence Fishburne, Tito the pool boy, or even Miss Yvonne. Pee-wee did get married in one episode to a fruit salad. The character perhaps was conceived in some deep, pre-sexual level of Reubens' unconscious brain. A child's brain, where gender and sexual orientation playfully swirled around each other like vanilla and chocolate ice cream in a cone. And maybe there's significance in the character's name. Pee-wee, indicating something or someone very small or young, and Herman, an ambiguous compound of feminine, her, and masculine, man. I'm not a psychologist, so my vocabulary here is imprecise. Maybe a student of Melanie Klein could figure it all out. On the other hand, I don't think that there was anything sexually confusing or confused about Pee-wee either. If you want real confusion, watch Sam Rockwell's big scene on White Lotus. As performed by Reubens, Pee-wee was a wholly integrated personality. Which is why, having perhaps slightly muddled my argument, I reiterate that Pee-wee, at least the one who lived in the Playhouse, was gay. The show, which ran from 1986 to 1991, was rife, and knowingly so, with what we nowadays call gay or queer signifiers. You couldn't miss them. Randy the puppet looked like a rough trade howdy-doody. Terry the pterodactyl, anxious and neurotic with a preeningly theatrical voice, wasn't far removed from one of Samantha Stephens' flustered aunts on Bewitched, another show that can be mined endlessly for gay subtext. I believe I already mentioned Tito the pool boy. What children's show ever featured a pool boy? And there was Jambi the genie, Paul Paragon, a turbaned, disembodied head radiating light. It's harder to pinpoint why Jambi was gay, exactly, except to say that if he'd had hands, he'd be folding sweaters. Pee-wee's Playhouse was basically a children's show that could have been written by Oscar Wilde, author of The Importance of Being Earnest. Earnest, by the way, was a euphemism for homosexual in Victorian England. I think if I'd seen Playhouse as a boy, in other words, when I was still part of the audience it was intended for, I might have been drawn to the gay subtext without understanding it. For a gay man, though, the winks were an instantly comprehended form of cultural code, something like gaydar reconstituted as humor. One of the pleasures of gay culture was, and is, being able to pick up on a joke, a phrase or a line that makes sense. That's funny, only if you happen to be that way. I can't tell you the strange, delicious frisson I experienced when I first heard the phrase, friend of Dorothy, which refers to the gay obsession with the Wizard of Oz. I remember as well a night when I'd first moved to Manhattan and went to a cabaret show, gay signifier no one, of trunk psalms, which is what you call numbers cut from musicals, gay signifier no two. The singer brought down the house with the line, as Benny Venuta used to say.